Hey, what's up, everybody? Evolutionary.org Hardcore 2.0, episode 18. Today, we're going to talk about Trenbolone from Para Pharma. And in this podcast, we're going to focus mostly on strength and boosting your strength on Tren, because Tren is one of the best steroids out there for strength. I know I hit my personal records for strength on Tren. And we're also going to talk about a little bit as well on cutting with Tren and recomping, because Tren really does that good as well. So Tren pretty much does it all. So in this one, we're going to hit that. And this is the podcast to listen to. If you've used Tren before and you want to use it again, but use it in a different way, or use it to get the maximum type of results, or if you want to use Tren for the first time, this is the podcast for you. And ParaPharma is an absolute great brand. So ParaPharma, look, at the end of the day, they have many, many different Trenbolone options. And we're going to talk about it on this podcast. But the reason Trenbolone is so popular and ParaPharma is so popular is because their gear is fantastic. And we absolutely know, based on the reviews from people, based on the testing of the products, and based on the results that guys are getting on Trenbolone from ParaPharma, that it is the legit gear. And if you actually go to the ParaPharma website, they show you they've been in business at least 12 years. They've got 45 different products. They have 30 different APIs. They have their products listed with lab tests that are recent. We're talking about over the past year, they've done them, not from 10 years ago, not from 15 years ago. They update their testing. They've got the Janoschick testing, which is legitimate, and they show exactly when it was done. And most of their products, we're talking about, they update their products within months, within a year, 2 years maximum. So that these products, the batch that you're getting, was actually tested by an independent lab, and we have the numbers to show that it is legit. So anyone who's used the products knows that it's going to be legit stuff as well. So Mobster, why don't you kind of touch on ParaPharma a little bit?
As Steve knows, I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago in an off-air part to Steve. I've actually got ParaPharma products here, Steve. I'm holding in my hand something that we've been mentioning during the podcast, part of the Cut Stack 150. So I'm holding their product, and guys, there's so many different things, but we use this when we talk about approved sources. I will echo what Steve said. Why do we like certain companies? Why are certain companies approved for our members on the forums? Because they are golden. And in the case of Tren, that's kind of literal. So an approved source is one that's been tried and tested. It's approved source is one where members of the forum ourselves sometimes have used products, and we know how we feel on that product. One of the things I talk about multiple times on this podcast is that I love to see the certificate with some analysis. I want to see tests. I want to see true, honest testing. And Steve just said, I'm literally on their lab results page right now on the website that Steve's talking about, looking about the products. And again, this stuff going off to independent labs, not in-house testing, guys, but outside testing. Those are exactly the kind of things that you want. When it comes to a product like Tren, especially, Steve, I'm old enough, and I think Steve's old enough. We can remember when it came into the whole performance enhancing drug thing, and the guys were making it out of the Phenoplex, Steve, the cow pellets, and mixing it up in their homes and doing all that kind of stuff. We don't need to do those things anymore. So then we come down to labs that have come and gone. So we want labs like ParaPharma to have been around 12 years. We want to be able to go anywhere on the performance enhancing net and see people that have tried that product. That's exactly the kind of thing that we do. We can't, it's not like the supermarket, Steve, where we can return it. It's a pain in the ass. And we are literally, as we used to be in the old days, we were trusting guys with stuff in a bag in the trunk of their car in the gym car park. Now it's not like that. The only way that you stay in business is by being honest. The only way you stay in business is by producing solid ass products. Trust me, guys, scammers don't last a year, 6 months. I know labs that have lasted 9 months, Steve. I have personal interaction with labs that have lasted 9 months. So you want a lab that's been around over a decade with solid products that you can refer to other members for. You want to try this product, as Joe had it, as Bob had it, as John had it. You want all of that. And you want good, solid comments coming back. The only time it gets a bit mixed up is when the diet was poor, the training was poor, whatever else. But they tell you they love the trend. I can feel it working real quick. I got great results, like Steve said. That's the kind of feedback we want. And then the certificates of analysis, the lab test, everything else is just icing on the cake for me, Steve. Back to you.
Yeah, and I said this many, many times. Look, at the end of the day, most of the gear that is going to be sold in your gym is going to be some dude who made it in his bathtub or his toilet, okay, in his bathroom. He makes the gear and he thinks he's smart, but that's not gear you should be putting in your body. There's zero, there's zero know what you're putting in your body when you trust someone like that with the gear. Because they're going to cut corners, first of all. Number two, they're going to be incompetent. They're going to miss things. I mean, I've heard stories, Mobster, of guys finding hair in their gear, dirt in their gear. I've had stories of guys injecting and ending up in an emergency room with very, very serious infections.
I've seen those pictures, Steve. Flakes of skin in the bottom of the bits of rubber because they've used a poor quality rubber bung in the top. Some of it's just been horrendous. Flies, literal wings of insects in the bottom of the bottle. I've seen those photographs, Steve, especially back in the day. It's horrendous.
You really have to be careful what you put in your body. So, ParaPharma, they produce their stuff in an actual lab. These are professionals. These are educated people. They're chemists. They're people who do this shit for a living. This is their full-time job. And they produce these products and they make sure that they're high quality. And at the end of the day, they're not going to put a product and sell it unless it's high quality. Your normal gym guy, he's gonna make a batch and then he's gonna start selling it. And then people are gonna come to him and be like, oh, I had this problem, I had that problem. Do you think he's gonna pull the batch? No, because then he'd be losing money, have to do it all over again. He's gonna just keep selling it to people and cross his fingers that nobody dies from his bad gear. And he doesn't care about anyone else. There's nothing. But these guys, they care about their reputation. And if you're around that long and you've had so many different people who've used your product post reviews of their experiences, and at the end of the day, everybody's saying, wow, this is great gear. I had great results. It was smooth. I really, really enjoyed the cycle. No problems at all. Then that's what we like. That's what Mobster and I are going to use. That's the gear we're going to use. There's no reason today to use poor quality gear. It's not like the old days where you were forced to use poor quality gear because that's all you had access to. So we've come a long, long way when it comes to what we use today. All right. So let's get into Tren, what we want to use it for. So a lot of people, they use Tren and they hit a plateau in their strength, and then they'll start using Tren and they'll blow through their plateau. Like they'll get incredible strength increases. I know for me, I was benching, my max was like 340 before Tren. And I had used Deca, testosterone, Sustanon, Dianabol, Anadrol, Superdrol even. I've used, Anavar, and I was able to get up to 340, and I weighed about 185 pounds at 5'5", 5'6". So when I started using Tren for the first time, I blew through that. I got up to like 380, 385 on the bench. Then I ran Tren again and again and again. And pretty soon, over the course of a couple of years, I'd taken my bench from the 340 area to 420, which was my max. So I can remember that I had my girlfriend at the time spotting me, and I told her, I was like, look, this is my max right here. I'm going to try for 1. And if you got a problem, if I struggle, run and find 2 strong guys and bring them over. So, but I nailed that rep, and I was like, damn, I nailed that rep as hard as I could. And it was a lot easier than I expected. So I could have probably pushed 425, 430. That's coming toward the end of my Tren cycle, and I was like, well, that's good. That's good enough for now. But Tren made me ungodly strong for someone to weigh that much and do that much weight. That's really, really. So I mean, there's no way if you're 185 pounds, you're going to be able to do 420 without getting help, unless you're really like in the top 0.1% of strength naturally. I would love to see someone who can do that much weight naturally. And a lot of people claim natural, whatever, but they're really fake. So the bottom line is with Tren, I was able to do way more weight than I would have ever been able to do without Tren, even running all these different steroids. So Tren is the absolute best steroid for strength. I'm convinced of that. And if you use Tren, you're listening to this podcast, you're like, oh, I want to use Tren for the first time. I'll tell you, Para Pharma, they have some great Tren options. Great Tren options. I'll bring in Mobster to talk about that, about the strength aspects.
Yeah, let's be honest, Steve. When we're talking about steroids in general terms, you can cut on Dianabol, guys, but you're just making it harder. So obviously, you say Dianabol's much better for bulking and strength, and great as a first-time steroid. Tren for me is like it's up there in terms of the last legitimate steroid that I can run at it's kind of a sensible way before we get into stuff like check drops and halo testing. It's not for everybody. Some people really struggle with the side effects, but for those that are physiologically and biologically set up for it, Tren has a reputation that kind of blows everything else out of the water. Even with the side effects, the guys will put up with the side effects purely and simply because, and I'll use the phrase that we see sometimes on the forum, Steve, there's two phrases. One is Tren is gold and the other one is Tren is God. And it's because they've almost got fans. Tren has almost got fans amongst the PD community, and they just think this stuff is a be all and end all. And then it just comes down to what dose that these guys can put up with. So obviously there are issues. There's always going to be issues with every steroid, whether it's holding water or blood pressure or whatever else. Tren has its problems, but it has so many fans, and it's like that kind of like if we use a sports car or a fast speeding car analogy, it's the last thing you add when you've done everything else, because you know that this is going to push the engine, to push the tires, everything else. But the speed you're going to get out of the car is going to be unreal. And the same thing applies to your body. Now, I know specifically strength athletes that have used Tren, and their strength went through the roof. The only issue for them, Steve, is they tend to be fatter than most bodybuilders and carry more body fat than most bodybuilders, although even they tend to be getting leaner in this day and age, and maybe that's because of Tren use. It's just more functional. But yeah, they loved it for strength, but they struggled with the sweats and the other issues that Tren has. But yeah, it's absolutely up there, Steve. We've talked about Tren in previous podcasts, and Tren for me is actually kind of super useful right across the spectrum. Now, we discussed in previous podcasts cutting and recomposition. Today's focus, just to make it different, is strength. And can it be used for strength? Absolutely. Absolutely, Steve. And Steve's proved the point. Steve's bench press is on par with my bench press. I think there's about 12-pound difference between us on the bench press, Steve, in all-time PBs. But I probably outweighed Steve what he weighed then by somewhere between 80 and 100 pounds. So his bench press pound for pound is better than mine. And that may well come down to Steve's use of Tren in that particular example. I can only imagine, Steve, back in the day, if you and I had gone head to head and I'd been on Tren as well, maybe I'd have done a 450 or a 460. Who knows? Maybe that's still in my future, because Tren is definitely in my future. As I said at the beginning, I'm going to be using it later on in the year as part of a cutting stack. So who the hell knows, Steve? Maybe I'll blow past you by 30 or 40 pounds. But my God, I'd have taken my time. I've done 10 or 15 years to get to that level. And as I say, I probably outweighed Steve pound for pound then and now by about, I think even back in the day, Steve, I was 80 pounds heavier than what you was. And you were putting the same numbers up. In fact, slightly better than me back in the day because of Tren. So that's a great example, personal example, just from Steve. On the forums, and you guys just come on the forums and search for Tren and what people think of Tren, or ask on the forums, create a post, and you will see. I'll be unkind and call them fanboys because they kind of are, but the number of people that come on and say, "Yeah, Tren was amazing, PBs, the most ripped they got," recomposition. I was eating shit. Da, 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 da. That's its reputation, and that's the reason for that is quite simply it's super effective. Of course, as we discussed in previous podcasts, it doesn't matter the source. If the issue for you is that you could have done better because of a diet, you could have done better if your training was on point, you could have done better if you lowered the dose. Sometimes that's part of the thing, and we're going to get into all of that later on in the podcast. Medically speaking, I think Steve's touched on this. Funny enough, there's a little historical argument, and I'll bring Steve in on this, which was this idea that goes around in the forums every so often. Thankfully, not as often as it used to. I mentioned it earlier when I said the guys back in the day got their trend from Phenoplex. But as Steve has pointed out on multiple occasions, historically speaking, it was actually for humans first. I'll bring Steve in to talk about that briefly.
Yeah, that is correct. So Trenbolone was actually pharmacy grade. There was a company out of France that would produce it. And once steroids started getting banned and the governments around the world and the Olympics started really cracking down on it, they didn't want any more of the heat. They're like, let's get out of this industry. So they stopped producing it. So that's when, if you're lucky enough to have Trenbolone stocked up, that's when the price, started going up. So then people started producing Tren, like you said, from the pellets, and then it went from there. So then Underground Labs came around, they started producing Trenbolone. So today there isn't a single pharmaceutical company out there that produces Tren, but thanks to companies like Para Pharma, we can still enjoy the benefits of Tren and use them like this. But you just have to find a lab that's going to produce legitimate Trenbolone that's high quality. That's the key with Trenbolone. Low quality Trenbolone is dangerous to put in your body. It's very, very toxic and very, very dangerous. It can be very, very dirty and can cause kidney failure if you're putting in bad Tren into your system. So ParaPharma is legitimate Tren and it's high quality. So you don't have to worry about that type of thing happening. So besides strength with Tren, look, you can do anything on Tren. You can cut on Tren, you can recomp on Tren, you can bulk on Tren. A lot of people think that Tren is just for cutting or just for strength. No, you can bulk on Tren, absolutely. In fact, it works great for bulking. So you can bulk and get stronger at the same time on Tren. And that's really one of the things that it can give you. That's why a lot of power lifters absolutely love Tren. The perma bulkers, you actually mentioned it, Mobster, some of the fatter guys who are quote unquote power lifters, they love Tren. And a lot of these guys on social who put out videos and strength videos and stuff, they claim they're natural, or they'll claim, oh, I'm just taking TRT. Yeah, okay. They're on Tren. And that's one of the things that they use. They basically are, their HRT, their hormone replacement therapy, is Tren. Like they literally probably stay on Tren most of the year, if not all year, because they're just addicted to the strength. Once you get those strength gains on Tren, you will not be able to run another steroid. You're not going to be able to come off Tren after you're benching 400 plus pounds and then go back to using Primo or Equipoise or Test or whatever and ever see those numbers again. Assuming you really, really hit your plateau and you use the Tren to shoot through it. You know what I'm saying? So that's why with Tren, it's so addictive psychologically to use Tren, because you'll never be able to go back to anything else. It's just not going to be the same. So that's why you see a lot of people, they abuse Tren, and I abused Tren for like 2 years. I wasn't running it 2 years straight. Trust me, the side effects were pretty brutal. But what I would do is I'd run a cycle, maybe 8 weeks, come off for like 16 weeks, then go back on, then come off, then go back on, back and forth. And I would try to go back to using Primo or something. And I'd be like, what is this shit? This shit ain't even do anything for me. So make sure before you run the Tren that you really, really, really are ready for it, because it's going to be hard. If your first cycle is Tren, then you're just going to want to run Tren going forward. Like going back to another steroid, you're going to be like, the stuff isn't working for me. Well, because you're so used to the results you get from Tren, which hits you like a ton of bricks. So I've been full circle now. Now I'm scared to use Tren. It's so fucking powerful that I'm actually scared to use it. And it's just like I'm kind of like I don't really want to use it anymore. I'm kind of past that stage where I need something like that that's going to make me into Superman in the gym and make me that strong. I'm worried. I'm worried about blowing out because I've already blew out my right shoulder. I'm worried that I'm going to blow out my left shoulder. I'm worried I'm going to blow out a pec. We hear people blow out pecs on Tren because you're doing so much weight. You see, you hear people blowing out hips and knees because they're squatting so much on Tren. And I was squatting a lot. I mean, I was squatting like plates on each side, like no problem on Tren. 600 pounds, no problem. And we're talking about 45-degree angle on the squats. We're not talking about, squats where I'm coming down 10 degrees and going back up and counting that as a squat. No, I was going down 45-degree angle, So yeah. Go ahead, Mobster. Yeah.
I feel like you're picking on me this Steve. I can only imagine what I do, man. I'm kind of getting excited about the whole idea of using it now. And I'm trying to hold myself back here because I'm kind of doing that kind of weight now on Anavar. So what the hell would I be? I'm not right this minute, just recently. But what the hell would I be like if I was doing Tren? I think the issue for us, Steve, and it's just an aside, guys, is we're the wrong side of 40. It's you younger guys. You shouldn't be blowing out your knees or your hips. I think the obvious thing is, Steve, and you and I will talk about this, and I'll include it later on in the training stuff. The temptation to go absolutely crazy, whether that's with the weights, training, the volume, or even up in the dosage, is strong. If I take something like Tren and I get strong on 100 milligrams, say, I'm going to want to go 150. And I want to go, of course, I'm older, so I know that if I was giving you guys advice, I'd be holding you back a little bit. There's always another cycle, and I want your knees and your ligaments to catch up. That's the thing with training. It can have that kind of effect. And in fact, I will talk about this now as well, Steve. It's actually one of the few performance enhancing steroids, specifically anabolic steroids, when it can actually have a slight, and they're specifically studied in older patients, slight effect on your mental process. So here's the thing, and this applies to all anabolics. If you're getting crazy numbers in the gym, if your pump is insane, if your measurements are getting out of control, you just can't believe how quickly you're growing, the temptation, especially when you're younger, to go crazy is there. I think the temptation with Tren is that much more powerful, that much more of an edge, if you like, guys. So it's that kind of, and see what we're talking about when we're having this podcast. We're telling you that's how people think, that's how people feel, and the results are kind of almost second to none, Steve. There'll have to be something a little bit different, or you really respond to another drug incredibly well. When we're talking on this podcast, we're talking about the majority of our listeners. So we go, is it the type of drug you should take first off? No. You should have experience of how you deal with antibiotics, including mild ones, how you feel, your sense of well-being, and so on and so forth. I want you to be kind of mature mentally as much as physically when it comes to Tren, because I want you to be able to handle the negative side effects, the physical ones, and to a much smaller degree, the mental ones. I want you to be ready. A lot of you younger guys are like, I'm ready now. No, you ain't, motherfucker. I want you to get some time under your belt, a little bit of anabolic experience, and then bring in the training, and even in a lower dose, especially. And I'll have you using shorter esters for the same reason. If you can't handle it, quick in and out is great. Medium and longer esters, which we will discuss, better for those of you with experience who know you can handle it. So that's what we're talking about. And specifically today, when we get to the training section, we're going to talk about training for strength and what kind of body fat's good for you, etc., etc. Let's look at the options now, Steve. And I'll talk about both the product with Steve and the drug test because I've got that information in front of me. I'll start with the fun. ParaPharma calls their Trenbo. Now, there are other options, but if you're looking at ParaPharma products, Trenbo E, which is Trenbo enanthate, 200, ParaPharma INTL. This is in the international version, 200 milligrams a mil. So there you go, right, guys? And on the drug test, I will look at the labs for you right now. I'm looking at a Trenbo 100, for example, on the screen right in front of me, Steve, slightly overdosed. And this is the most recent lab test that they did. So this is the kind of stuff that we talked about at the beginning, why I like the simple fact that there's the test is not dead on. If it was dead on every single time, I'm almost suspicious. I want it to be there or thereabouts. I want it to be as close as it possibly can be. And the Trenbo E is a medium There are the Tren Ace, which we'll talk about in a minute, is the short version. The medium ester, the slightly longer acting, longer in your system, longer to clear from your system, would be the Tren E. What do you think about the Tren E, Steve?
Yeah, so Tren E, their Tren E is really nice. 200 milligram milliliter. You only have to run, if you're running the Tren, we're going to get into dosing in a second, but really a 1 to 2 cc's of it a week. So it's not that much injecting. So if you're not a big fan of injecting, I'm not a big fan. I know Mobster, you're not a big fan. So this could be a really good option for you. You don't have to inject it that often. And it's in your system. It hits you like a ton of bricks. And it's going to be in your system a little longer when you come off as well. So if you don't want if you're okay with that, then the Trenbo E200 from ParaPharma is really, really good. So yeah, it's a good one. It's a good one for sure. What are some of the other ones they got?
We've got a Trenbo Ace or Trenbo A, 100 milligrams a mil. And I'll use the proper name, guys, so you know what to look for on the ParaPharma products. Trenbo A 100 ParaPharma is the international version. Again, very reasonably priced, Steve. And again, as I mentioned already, the acetate or the A is a much quicker in, much quicker out product. And again, this is something I would recommend, especially for you guys that are not experienced with using Tren, as I said a little bit earlier on. So what happens, guys, and this applies to any anabolic, and especially the stronger, harsher ones with regards to side effects, how you feel, because a sense of well-being, for some people, Steve's touched on this in previous podcasts, the anabolic makes a lot of people feel good. You actually get a sense of well-being. I think Steve's described it as, and there's other ones where we go, oh, I can feel the product working with a certain number of days. Now, when it comes to side effects, Tren is right up there. So the recommendation is always going to be to run it at a lower dose to begin with, up it as required later on. Don't go crazy right away, guys. And again, using a short-acting acetate like Tren acetate, purely and simply because quick in, quick out. So if you do have problems, you're only going to have to put up with for a few days, and then the effects are going to negate. So, for example, here, Steve, recommendation would be something like 100 milligrams to 200 milligrams. I'd actually probably go for the 100 milligrams myself, and that would be every other day. So that would be about 300, the equivalent of 350 milligrams a week. I'd probably actually lower that dose a little bit again, and especially with the acetate. And again, for my first time, not wanting to exceed 300 milligrams a week. That's me personally. How would you run it, Steve?
Okay, so yeah, the nice thing about Tren Ace is the flexibility. So how would you run it? I like to tell people when it comes to Tren to play by ear. It's good to have a plan going into a steroid cycle, but sometimes you have to change things. And when you're using the Trenbo A100, you're allowed to change things. That's the whole idea because of the short ester. So you can start or stop it, and you can raise the dose and you can lower the dose, and it's going to take effect a lot quicker. The release is a much quicker than the enanthate version, which is a longer, slower release. So let's say you're running the Trenbo A and you start off at 300 milligrams and you're like, well, the side effects are too much. I want to lower it down. You can lower it down to 250, and then the effects will take over within a few days. I like that. Go ahead, Mobster.
Yeah, I agree. And this is the thing, guys. You'll see me on the forum talk about this in a different way. I'm gonna be 100% straight here, guys. I always have a plan going in, and Steve does too. We do that because we've experienced with using performance enhancing drugs. We know what works for us. Steve, as you said, got experience with Tren already, so he kind of knows how he would feel if he started to do it again, and the doses that is used in the past to get the most out of it. So because we have that experience, but equally, as Steve's pointed out in other podcasts, we're older. So when the age he was when he ran it and had his most success, he's not that age now. He's older. One user might be a little bit overweight. Another user might be a little bit underweight. Another user might have a really poor diet. The next user might be really poor in the gym. Right? So the results will differ. So here's what happens. I go in, and this would happen to Tren or any anabolic, with a plan. But like Steve says, it's not carved in stone, guys. If you come on the forum and say, I'm absolutely struggling, this is insane, I can't put up with the side effects, it's the legit product, absolutely, but the side effects are killing me, then we go lower the dose. Every single time we tell you to lower the dose. If you're on 800 milligrams, we, oh my God, that's half, cut it to 400. But then once you've settled down, once you've found you can manage the side effects and you're still getting those great results, you realize you didn't need to run 800. You can stay at 400, and you do that to the end of the cycle. That's why we have things like consults with Steve. We have myself and Steve and the other mods and the reps on the forums coming and giving you this kind of advice. So we don't want you randomly changing things. We don't want you introducing things just because some guy down the gym said that's what you should do. You should do your, as we say on a lot of forums, do your own research, go away. But the information, again, especially in the articles, and especially with users like Steve and ourselves, with our experience, we're going to know what works for the majority of people, how to tweak it, how to up it up and down. This is why even the top Olympians have typically something like a prep coach. Very few of those guys do the work for themselves. They have someone else. And don't forget, guys, they're dieting, they're training hard, they're tired, their head's all over the place with low carbs. It's good to have someone else looking at it. The same thing applies to us. The same thing applies to you. So, yes. And again, this is the reason why we would suggest that you don't go with Tren straight away from Para, but Tren to begin with, just to get your feet wet, just to see how you feel. And again, super easy in, super easy out. If you think, I'm having a great time, this dosage is wonderful, the results are coming already, then you might be able to change to a Tren if you've got it handy. And that's exactly the sort of thing that we're talking about. It doesn't have to be rock solid carved in stone. Equally, it shouldn't be kind of random and messed up and make no sense whatsoever. There is a kind of science to this, and that's the reason why prep coaches exist. It's the reason why you can do a consult with Steve to get this kind of advice and to manipulate things. But it shouldn't be random. It shouldn't be like rolling the dice. It shouldn't be like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I'm just, there are guys out there that are pin happy, Steve. They love injecting every single day. Okay, then guys, you must use a short ester because otherwise, what the hell? It can say, and sometimes that's how logical as it gets for those users. But we're not like that. We don't think you are. That's the reason why you're listening to this podcast. Is that not right, Steve? What other options have we got here?
Yeah, so next option is the Tren Mix 350. And this one is really, really interesting. I haven't seen anything like this out there, I don't think. This is a blend of Trenbolone enanthate, 100 milligrams, and testosterone enanthate, 250 milligrams. So you're going to get 350 milligrams total per vial. So on this one, I think you probably are going to want to go and do the 2 cc's a week. So you're going to do 1 cc on Monday, for example, and then another cc on Thursday or Friday. So you want to split it twice a week. And you're going to end up getting 500 milligrams of testosterone long ester, and you're going to end up getting 200 milligrams of Trenbolone long ester. I think that would be the best way to do it. So this is a stack for those of you who have used testosterone before, 500 milligrams, and you've reacted really well to it for your particular goals. And you add the Tren on top of it, and the Tren's going to be at a lower dose than the testosterone. So I would imagine on this stack, your libido would be absolutely insane. It'd be uncontrollable. You're getting so many androgens here, and you're getting the estrogens pumping. So when you have a lot of androgens and a lot of estrogen in the body as a male, that tends to increase your libido a lot. So that's going to be probably the effects of running the stack. So I think it's a really, really good stack. For those of you who are looking to do that. Also for strength, it would be really, really tremendous, especially if you're a good responder to testosterone. And you're like, wow, I'm so strong on testosterone. Where are you going to get even stronger on this? Because now you're not only doing the testosterone, but you're also doing the Tren with it. So, but if you're not a good responder to testosterone, I have clients, they run 100 milligrams a week of testosterone, and they end up with gynecomastia. This is not for you then. This wouldn't be an option for you. You're better off just leaving the testosterone out and just going with the Tren. But we're going to talk about Tren, different, how to dose it and what to stack Tren with and running it solo, all that good stuff on the next segment. But Mobster touched on that a bit. And then there's also, they have another option that's a Tren mix too.
So what we talk about quite often on these podcasts is we try to talk from personal experience. And as Steve knows, I think I said on one podcast I hadn't used testosterone, and then remembered as we went off there that I had. And the specific testosterone I'd used somewhat coincidentally, Steve, was testosterone enanthate. And I got to say, I never got anything from it at all. And yet, as I've used these comments many times on previous podcasts, I know Strength Buddies are absolutely same product, the same batch. We would buy this stuff together. We shared up the vials. We all worked out the dosages that we needed for each person individually. I went away and did myself. They did themselves and so on. They loved it. They loved it. The testosterone-based thing was probably what was going through their mind. But the reality was they got stronger. Now, not everybody that was training with us at the time, and we had world-class athletes that were saying, some of these guys were amateur, novice competitors. All of the athletes loved the testosterone enanthate. I did not. I got nothing from it whatsoever. For whatever reason, my receptors, my physiology, whatever, wasn't set up. I've been said a bunch of times, I love Sustain on the Decker by comparison. Enanthate wasn't for me, but I would say the majority of my buddies loved it. Those that were world-class were the ones that were also introduced in Tren. Now, for me, this product, for my friends, for my buddies, my training partners, etc., back in the day, would be perfect, Steve, because of how they responded to testosterone enanthate, and because Tren was just such a great strength builder, like Steve said. And again, the dosaging. And I will also echo something else that Steve said as well. I was fully expecting, doing the research for the show, to see something else. I was expecting to see 100, 150, 100, and 100, something like that. 3 different steroids. No, this is unique. I don't think I've seen this anywhere else in all the podcasts that Steve and I have done, which is probably in the hundreds now, of a company that we've talked about on air, where a mix like this has only had Tren E and Test E in it. So it's unique in that particular regard, Steve. I'll jump on to the next one. So, like a bunch of companies, and I'll say this not to disrespect Para Pharma, because it's quite the opposite. A lot of companies have pre-prepared products, like the one we've just discussed, purely and simply, not because they're trying to produce something that's different from everybody else, but because they know that this combination of products are what work. This is why you'll see a bunch of companies with 100 of this, 100 of this, 100 of this, and you'll go to another company that's got exactly the same ratios with exactly the same steroidal base for that particular product. And that's because there's a certain sweet spot, a synergy that Steve and I talk about on his shows, where certain testosterones and forms of testosterone work together, and the ratios. Now, guys, if you're one of those people like me with a tested enanthate that something doesn't work for you, there's nothing to stop you going out and buying 2 bottles, one of the tested enanthate, for example, and one of the Tren, and mixing this yourself together in the syringe and injecting in that particular way. So that's what you can do if you don't respond. But again, as always with these podcasts, we're talking to the majority, 80 to 90% of our listeners would do, especially if they were training for strength, fantastically well on the last one. So the next one is a cutting stack. Again, very popular right across the thing. And we're talking at here, test propionate, Tren Ace, and drostanolone, and all of those are 50 milligrams. So it's a cut stack 150, 50 milligrams of each of those. Now, to me, Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, that's a short, medium, and a long-acting ester. So in other words, it's one of those ones, I would probably just do this a couple of times a week, as Steve said, so I'd only really, for me, personally, be looking at something like 300 milligrams total, 2 1 mil jabs. Some of you would want to go a little bit higher, and especially the experienced users. Cutting stack, what does that mean? It just means that there's certain synergy that enables you to lose body fat. Now, I will underline and emphasize this point. You cannot take a steroid and just have the fat fall off you unless you're very, very, very lucky. The rest of you must do a diet, and they must do the condition. They must fast. They must do the training. If you want the best results, that's the way it's going to. However, a cutting stack like this is set up for you to give you the best results if you have all your other things in a line, Steve. So that's that particular one. How would you run the cut stack 150?
Yeah, so this one, this one is one of those that if you've got experience with Masteron, you've got experience with Tren, you got experience with testosterone, and you're like, wow, I like each of these, then why not run them all together? Now, obviously, you can go to ParaPharma, you can buy all these separately, and you can mix them up yourself in the same syringe. A lot of people don't know that, believe it or not. A lot of people are like, well, can I do that? And of course you can do that. Mixing oils in the same syringe is a great idea. But in this example, ParaPharma does it for you. So in this situation, if you do 1 cc, you're going to get 100 milligrams of each. Obviously, per week, 100 milligrams of each isn't going to be a cycle. It's going to be a little bit above what you would use for TRT, right? So in this one, I would do maybe 3 cc's a week. Then you're getting 300 milligrams of each. I think that would be a good way to kind of run it. You could do 4 cc's of each and get 400 milligrams of each. You could do 5 cc's of each, and get 500 milligrams of each. Now you're talking about 1,500 milligrams a week total. If you're getting 500 milligrams a week, if you're doing 5 different doses times 5, so you're getting 500 milligrams of each drug. You're getting 500 milligrams of masteron, 500 milligrams of tren, 500 milligrams of testosterone. That comes out to 1,500. So that is quite a cycle, and that is a legit cycle. That's something that guys on the forum like Body Monster or Monstro, those are guys who are at that level, or Quad Sweep. These are guys who are, professional bodybuilders. These are guys who they live, breathe this stuff. That's gonna be a dosage for them. But if you're just an average Joe, there's no need to run 1,500 milligrams a week of gear. I've never run more than 1,000 milligrams a week of gear. The most I've ever run was 900 milligrams of injectables with oral. So I guess technically that would put me above 1,000. But in terms of injectables, I've never ran more than 900 milligrams. It's just not needed for me. But some of these guys, if you're really, really want to take to the next level, you'd run that. So it just depends on your situation, Mobster. But I think 3 cc's a week is plenty, because that'd be 900 milligrams total. And I think that would give you a good stack for 95% of you out there. Go ahead.
I'm going to jump in here. And this is where experience is super useful. It's also why, for example, quite often we're asked for photographs of people on the forum. We want to look at you. We look at how you physically set up, what kind of body fat you have. We're asked for questions about your age, your training experience, your PED use, everything to date, right? So, for example, I'll talk about the 3 individuals that Steve's just said, right? So, forgetting any personal stuff, what about the physical stuff? Each of the individuals that Steve just described are muscular, and they're not just muscular when they're on or when they're dieting, they're muscular year round. I think there's no denying that. Secondly, they are that 10%. They're probably less than 10%. Monstro, for example, competes and is a WABA pro. And I know that he does incredibly well with sponsorship and gets around to competitions and talks to other professional bodybuilders. Body Monster doesn't even have the ideal situation. He's on a ship some time of the year. I believe they do supply runs out to the oil rig, Steve. So he has to train with 50-pound dumbbells somewhere down in a hold. It's only when he gets back to the ranch he's able to train properly and eat properly. He's eating the food that the chef serves on the ship, and yet he stays in shape year round. And Quad Sweep, I think, is a competitor. So Body Monster isn't. So what you're talking about here, guys, is a small percentage of human beings who have the genetic advantage of being able to have thin skin, muscles popping, pretty much year round. Now, when they're on, when they're cycling, when they're dieting, when they're, especially in the case of Monster, in competition prep, it goes up another level. When we're talking to you, the listener, we're talking up to the average Joe. So we're talking to a fella that's trained for a while. He knows what food he should be eating, even if he's not doing it all the time. He knows how to get the best out of a workout, or he's working with someone that can show him how to get the best of a workout, and he's getting ready when he wants the conversation about Tren from Para Pharma to take things to the next level. So that's the way we introduce the subject, and it's why we sometimes go on about sensible dosages and training and diet more than perhaps you might want, purely and simply because we want to emphasize those points in order for you guys to get the best results. So like I said, those are 3 great individuals who love Tren, who do incredibly well on Tren, that they are physically and biologically set up to be muscular all the time, and only to have that muscularity enhanced when they're on Tren, and in combination with a diet and a cardio and hard work in the gym. Trust me, all 3 of them are putting the grafting in the gym when it comes to that stuff. My last one here, Steve, is the Long Stack 300. And it's called the Long Stack purely and simply, guys, because it has the longest active esters in there. And the idea is, again, this is a minimum. If you talked at the one that Steve was just discussing, you might be looking at 3 jabs a week. This, for me, is a guaranteed, in my mind, Steve, 2 jabs a week. It's made up of drostanolone, 100, treninanthate, 100, and testinanthate, 100. So the ratios, like Steve said, I could see some people, and again, perhaps Body Monster and the like, running this more than 1 mil at a time. So I could see them guys looking at 2 mil, certainly 1.5 mil, and they might, because they absolutely do incredibly well on it, go up to 3 jabs a week.
Go.
Of course, Steve has discussed most of these points. What I will say, Steve, is and this is a great tip for you guys, especially if you want to save yourself a few bucks. All of these products can be bought singularly at a certain price, but please make sure that you also be aware that ParaPharma does bulk deals on these via their suppliers. So those companies that supply ParaPharma on their behalf, you go on there and you'll find you can buy 5 or 6 and do a much, much better price, specifically on these products that we've just listed. Let's talk about some of the side effects that Tren has for those of you that are new listeners, Steve, and then we're get into training and tips as well.
And also let's get into the types of things that you can stack with it. So the 2 stacks that have already, we talked about a cut stack 150, which is short esters of test, Tren, and Masteron. We talked about the long stack, which is long esters of test, Tren, and Masteron. And we talked about, of course, the Tren A's, the Tren E, and then you have on top of that, you have the Trenbolone mix, which is majority testosterone and a little bit Tren. So really, those are the 5 Tren options that we've talked about on this podcast, just in case you want to go to the ParaPharma website and check those out. So you can go ahead and do that. So listen, at the end of the day, Tren, you can dose it as low as 200 milligrams. That's a PED dose. 250. I like 250 to 300 area. I've done it as high as 350, 400. The side effects were a little strong. If you inch up to 400, the professionals like to jack it up even more, 500, 600, up to 1,000 even. But to me, that side effects were crazy on those dosages. So I like to keep it sane and keep everything under control. Some of my favorite steroids, Mobster, that I've run with Tren. I've run testosterone with Tren. I've run Anavar with Tren. I've run Turinabol with Tren. I like the Anavar or Turinabol option. They're mild and they don't cause too many side effects. They don't add to the side effects on top of the Tren. So I like that. So with the Anavar and T-Bol, you can run anywhere from 30 to 40. Some guys go 50, 60 milligrams. And that's really, really good option. It doesn't cause any type of estrogenic issues. Keep in mind, if you do use testosterone with Tren, some of you will, including that stack that we talked about earlier, that Tren Mix 350, you will need an aromatase inhibitor to control the estrogen. Because if you let your estrogen get out of control, now you're adding to the side effects, and you're going to turn around and blame the Tren for getting gynecomastia. But no, that's from excess estrogen. So you need to run something to control that estrogen on cycle. So Aromacin, Arimidex, even Letro to have on hand is a really, really good option. Some of the other steroids, Mobster Primo is a good one to run with Tren. Very good yin and yang effect. Primobolan is very mild. It won't add to your side effects. It'll give you some extra effects if you're interested in using Tren to cut. And then there's Equipoise. And Equipoise is a great one because it's going to help with energy. It's going to help you. It's a more mild steroid as well. So again, it's going to yin and yang. Notice I'm telling you to stack mild steroids with Tren, especially if you're new to this. You new to using Tren, because if you start stacking Tren with other harsh compounds, you're going to start getting a lot of side effects. And we don't want you to get side effects. It's going to affect your gain. So if you're having a hard time on Tren by itself, and you start adding other steroids to it, now imagine the side effects that you're going to get on top of it. So one of them, Mobster, is Winstrol. What happens if you stack Tren and Winstrol? Your head hair starts falling off. You get a lot of cholesterol problems. You'll even end up with headaches. Your high blood pressure becomes an issue. Because Winstrol by itself isn't necessarily a harsh steroid. It's harsh on your joints, but when you start stacking Winstrol, it gets even more harsh. So I've done Tren and Winstrol, and my head hair started falling out. I started getting headaches, which I never get headaches. My blood pressure was sky high on it. My blood pressure is usually normal. So for me, Winstrol didn't mix with it. But a lot of you out there really like using Winstrol with Tren. And then finally, Masteron. And again, I don't want to sound like a cliche mobster. We talked about it earlier, because the long stack and the cut stack already have Masteron included. Why? Because Masteron is like peanut butter and jelly when you stack it with Tren. It stacks incredibly well together. Masteron is a DHT derivative. So is Winstrol. So is Anavar. So are some of the other steroids we're talking about, Primobolan. But Masteron is such a pure DHT derivative that when you take it, it hardens you up. So it has a really good hardening effect. So if you're looking to recomp or cut, Masteron is probably the #1 steroid that you see physique competitors use with Tren, pro bodybuilders use with Tren, and they'll jack the dose up on Masteron. I think 300, 400, 500 milligrams a week of Masteron is all you need, but some guys will jack it up even higher to 1,000 or more of Masteron with Tren. So Mobster, touch on that a bit. I think I covered pretty much good stacks. Anything else you want to add to that? And then maybe start talking about some final tips.
I think you covered all of that, Steve. Let me ask you a quick question. This will be the final tip, guys. Some people, we don't talk about this a lot on the Tren podcast that we do, Steve. You've come up with a great tip for listeners about managing Tren cough. Some people get a kind of cough when they inject Tren and occasionally other steroids. So you've actually come up with a tip or two, and I've heard you mention this before, about managing that cough and the reason why you think people get it. So let the listeners know about that before we finish up.
Yeah, so that's the first tip we can talk about is the Tren cough. So what happens is when you inject Trenbolone, sometimes it gets near a blood vessel, travels into the lungs, and you start getting a little bit of a cough. And the cough can really, really bad. It just depends on how much you inject. So if you ever do an injection and you start pushing down on the plunger, you start feeling something a little weird, like you're having a hard time breathing or something, then immediately stop injecting and pull out. Because what happens is you're injecting into a near a blood vessel and it's traveling in your lungs, and it's going to cause you to start coughing uncontrollably, like for 30 seconds or a minute. And I've had that happen to me every Tren cycle I run. It maybe happens once or twice. So one of the ways you can prevent it, number one, is mixing your Tren with another steroid. So if you use the mixes of the Tren, there's a less of a chance that you're going to get it. Another thing you can do is inject the Tren more shallow. Now, when you inject shallow, you also increase your chance of abscesses. So, but when you inject more shallow, it's going to be less of a chance for you to go deep into the muscle where you're hitting a blood vessel, and it has a better chance of kind of getting trapped in there where it could travel into the blood vessel and into your lungs. So doing a tinier amount, mixing it, and then trying to avoid any blood. So if you've ever injected a muscle and you pulled out and blood came out, that would be an issue with the Tren cough. So you want to avoid muscles like that are prone to getting a lot of blood hits. So just be careful with that. But it's not particularly dangerous, but you want to make sure when you feel it coming on, you stop injecting. So don't be lazy and just be like, well, I went through the trouble of injecting. I don't want to have to switch out my needle and go through this over again. Let me just go ahead and finish plunging the injection. No, you need to pull off and inject slowly. This way you can realize if it's starting to come on, because you'll know it's coming on. And once it hits, you'll know exactly what it is. So the first time I ran Tren and it happened to me, I knew exactly what was going on. I didn't panic. I went in my shower, got on my hands and knees, and just coughed and coughed and coughed. And then after a minute or two, it was gone. Everything was normal. But it was good. It cleared out my sinuses really good. That was one of the benefits. So
it
try
last long. Yeah, it doesn't last long, guys, but it can be a bit disconcerting, especially if you're not used to it. So Steve's give you a few tips there. On the subcutaneous one, which is the non-intramuscular, that works if you're using short esters and small amounts. So keep that in mind. Here's another couple. This is the Tren Sweat Steve. So again, two things here, and it applies even to my strength buddies. Whether you're training for strength or whether you're looking to get lean or even recomposition, be kind of lean to begin with. You'll negate some of the side effects of Tren if you're already kind of lean. And not only that, guys, any muscular gains, any fat loss is going to be that much easier to see. But it's just one of those things that being a slightly higher body fat than you should be is going to cause you more problems. And that's especially true of Tren. Also, and it's just a few suggestions that Steve and I have discussed previously as a way of managing the simple fact that I think you're kind of revving your engine here, guys. You're raising your thermo levels. You're burning more heat. Your metabolism is ever so slightly increased. And in the summertime, and again, if you're a little bit overweight, you're going to get the Tren sweats. So we've talked about a quick few suggestions. One is a silent kind of fan. Steve mentioned a couple of models on previous shows. Cooling your sheets. And I even talked about taking those sheets off the bed or fresh ones of the night time, sticking them in a bag and sticking them in the freezer for about an hour, and then put them on the bed. And when you lay in the bed, you're super cool. Now, that's a great heat for the summertime, Steve, but it's especially true if you have the Tren sweats. You might do a short cycle where you might not have the girlfriend or partner or whatever sleeping with you in the bed, because if you're sweating profusely, like some guys do, and you're okay with it, your partner might not be. So keep that in mind and try to have, think about them as well as yourself when you're managing it. Transomnia is another one, Steve. Some people talk about vivid dreams. That's obviously you're sweating, so you're tossing and turning in bed. You're not as comfortable as you normally be. There's a few natural herbs and remedies you guys can use. And the last one, I think, which helps with both of those kind of things, and I talked about this on a recent show that we recorded, would be, if you can do it, a jug or some sort of container to drink out of in the middle of the night if you wake up for a minute or two, of ice cold water. It's good to be hydrated anyway, again, especially in the heat of the day. Oh, I think one more tip, Steve, before we finish off, and I've mentioned this before, and this again applies to guys getting the Tren sweats, insomnia, and so on and so forth, especially if you're thinking about getting in shape for the summer, guys. Think about late spring. Don't wait till you're the highest and hottest days of the year. Some of you guys that are living in Texas, 115 frigging degrees, Steve, all the time in the summertime. I'd hate to be running Tren my first time. So run it ahead of time. Think about getting a shape ahead of time. And that's especially true when it comes to Tren. So there you go, guys. I hope we've covered everything for you. ParaPharma is a great source with some great Tren options. Be sure to check them out. Any information you need, come on the forums and ask. And as always, we want your feedback. Please note, we are not doctors and opinions. Ours is our view and based on our experience and views on the topic, and podcasts are for informational purposes and entertainment only. The freedom of speech and the First Amendment applies.